Flip does it again in Vegas. But are you flipping mad that Bleacher Report has Isiah Thomas ahead of John Stockton on the all-time NBA list? It's next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 pow. Pow.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps, as well as YouTube. And the everydayers out there, you are truly the best there is. The Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. On today's show, we will talk about the Bleacher Report Top 100. I've got 7 or 8 little notes about everything from the trade exception the Jazz got to the salary floor and a bunch of geeky stuff. I don't know that we'll get to that today. We'll see if we do. Possibly. If not, we have tomorrow. But we will look at the top 100. Where did there was a run of amazing centers from Akeem to Robinson to Shaq to Ewing that were all part of an era. How did they rank in the top 100? What about the great run of point guards from Iverson to Nash to Harden to Kidd? Where did they all rank in the Bleacher Report top 100? The great kind of scorers of the game, the Vince Carters, Tracy McGrady's, Carmelo Anthony's, and the Dominique Wilkins, where did they all go? And where does someone like a Dame Lillard, who's probably the modern version of that, fit in the list? Where do the modern players top 100 go on the Bleacher Report? Look, what about Stockton, Malone? 2 other Jazz players make the list as well. So we'll jump in on all of those things. And where did the best player of today's game fall in the top 100 list for you? I thought some very interesting things there. Headlining that Isiah Thomas is ahead of John Stockton, which I don't think Jazz fans are going to love. Okay. Let's start with last night. Jazz played San Antonio, best game of the Summer League, stirring finish, awesomeness, and Flip, as we talked about all day yesterday on the show, dominant again. 35 points, 11 rebounds. He did have a single assist and a steal, no blocks, and awesome outing. Not against a particularly big team, right? Like Carter Bryant, Minix, Ingram, Harper got most of their minutes, and then Jones Garcia, who's been really good as well in this Summer League. I'm all fired up on what's going on with Flip. I'm all fired up. Like, it's all good. Okay. And the thing I said yesterday on the show is what's going to happen with his 3-point shooting. And he busted out 5 of 8. So now for Summer League, he's at 36%, which is kind of exactly where he's going to have to be in his NBA career. His free throw shooting last night, he had a pretty okay night at the line. I think he's now at 73%, which was, a problem last year. So he's gotten better there. Last night at the line, he was 8 of 12. Poor Cody missed those 2 both late. Super good. Like, Kyle's been the best dominating offensive player of Summer League. There's no downside to that. The excitement of last night's game, I felt like got people to jump a little too far. And I just want to point out 1 or 2 things to maybe temper a tiny bit of excitement. So the kid in the game for David Jones Garcia plays 27 minutes last night. He has 28 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, kind of matching Flip to some extent, though Flip was probably more dominant. But I mean, that's a guy that's just not been in the NBA. Like, he's a 6'4", 23-year-old. There wasn't a lot of size in last night's game, right? That's the other, aspect of things here in this game. Riley Minix is 6'7", hasn't played an NBA game. Like, there's a little temper some of this tiny bit, I guess, is what I'm saying today. Like, the only thing Flip can do is play the players that are in front of him and dominate them, and he has done a masterful job of that. It felt to me a little bit like the internet, rightfully so, it was that exciting game, and some of the reporting went to, like, he should start. And I thought that was a jump. Drew Timme is not probably an NBA player. Awesome dude, great player at Gonzaga. Probably not an NBA player because he despite being 6'10", 235, and he spent time with the Wisconsin Herd and the Long Island Nets and all of this, he doesn't defend well enough, move well enough to be an NBA player. He had 30 in a summer league game the other night. So I just want to make sure that we are keeping in context the setting by which this is taking place. Now, the only place Kyle can dominate right now is Summer League. And the fact that he's dominating Summer League is awesome, right? Like, that's awesome. But before we make the next jump, let's realize that Drew Timme is also dominating Summer League. If you understand, does that make sense? Like, and I'm not trying to minimize what Flip's done, because his opportunity right now is what he's doing, and he's killed it. And he's a great offensive player, and he has NBA offensive skills, and it's super. And we talked about it yesterday. He's dominating. I think he's going to turn out to be the steal of a terrible draft. But I don't want us to take like the next. It felt to me like a leap got taken last night in the excitement of the game, which is great because it means we're fired up and it's exciting and there might be an open spot there. But we're playing center in a summer league without big guys. And at this point of a summer league, really without big guys, and Flip's dominating. And he should, and he is. And that's great, because if he's not, that's much more concerning. So I'm a little bit on Summer League, a believer that it's better place to find out who's not doing something. So the fact that I watched Reed Shepherd seriously struggle in the second half of the game the other night in the Houston game, and I can't remember who they were playing, if I'm a little concerned if I'm the Rockets with the amount of minutes he's got to play. We can go to our own guy. Like, Isiah has not had a very good summer league. A little disconcerting, right? Like, it doesn't have to just be somebody else's players. A little disconcerting. If Cody hadn't had some of these games on this, he wasn't great last night, but he is taking 13 shots. If Cody was coming out of summer league and taking 3 shots a game, I'd be concerned. So the number one thing is honestly in summer league is like the amount of shot attempts you take is the best indicator of kind of what then translates to where you are in the NBA. 35 and 11. Flip was awesome. He was awesome. And he has been awesome offensively. And I did the whole show on it yesterday. So don't misunderstand where I am on this. I think he is turning out to be the steal of last year's draft. I think there's going to be maybe 5 rotation players out of all of last year's draft, and there's a real chance he's one of them. And that's pretty fabulous in the 32nd pick of the NBA draft. Should Isiah Thomas have been ahead of John Stockton? And who is the Bleacher Report top 10? It's all next on Locked on Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Murdochs have been in Utah for over 80 years. Actually, they're celebrating their 100th birthday now. So I think the number has changed. I keep saying over 80, but I'm hearing it's like actually going to be their 100th birthday. So I've got to figure that out. I don't know. Maybe they're aging in dog years. Nonetheless, The Hyundai car is absolutely fabulous, and the Murdochs are going to give you the best customer service you can imagine. So here's what we're doing. We have it set up so that we have a locked-on salesperson at every location to give you a VIP treatment. So if you're looking for a car right now and you're going to go shopping and you're going to look at a Hyundai, and I would suggest it because for the price and the value points of what you get, you can't match it, then you decide whether you like it or not. I'll get you set up with a VIP meeting with each and every location so that you don't have to walk in, wonder which vulture is going to come get you. Instead, you walk in, set up beforehand, and we get you the VIP treatment at Murdoch Hyundai. Located in Logan, Linden, and at 4646 South State Street. Just email me at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com, and I'll get you that VIP treatment at Murdoch Hyundai. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. That's right, the official sports book of Locked On. And FanDuel is here to make the summer fun. Home run derby last night, Cal Raleigh bringing it home under the lights. All-star game coming. Plus, you got golf, high-stakes soccer action, British Open coming, I believe. Already in on the action. Why not make it more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are just chilling, doing something else. You're fired up. It's easy to use, fast to pay out. Even more regular season games make it feel like must-watch events. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth, FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today and visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Bleacher Report comes out with a top 100. Seems like it's pretty well done. Just to give it to you, here are the top 10. Michael was won by 1 point. They did a system where they did 10, 9, 100 points for first vote, 99 for a second, 98 for a second. And supposedly, according to Andy Bailey, who works at Bleacher Report, Michael and LeBron were separated by 1 point when they were done. Now, I think there were more than one voters, so I think that's incredible. So Michael was 1, LeBron is 2. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is 3. Magic Johnson, 4. Bill Russell, 5. Shaq, 6. Duncan, 7. Larry Bird, 8. Wilt Chamberlain, 9. Steph Curry, 10. Kobe, Kobe's 11, not in the top 100. I always find the Tim Duncan, Akeem Olajuwon one very hard to figure out. And I think that the fact that Duncan won like 75% of his games probably means he needs to be exactly where he is. And I think they're right on that one. And he's number 2 all-time in defensive win shares. And he's got 15 all-defensive team. Like, it's pretty hard. I'm 100%. I think that's the right spot for Duncan. Akeem is the one that I always think is a little underappreciated on these lists in what he did in his 18 seasons. 12-time All-NBA, like in an year. Woo. But I don't know that I would have put him ahead of Kobe, and I don't know. So I think he's probably in the right spot. I really think they did a very, very good job on this. Oscar Robertson at 14, Jerry West at 15, just some of the old-time players. Duncan, Kevin Durant and Garnett are in the top 20, and they have Jokic at 17, which that'll create some discussion. The greatest players in the NBA have gone on 10-year runs. The guys that are all in the top 10 were top 5 of the MVP voting for 10 straight years. That's what separates them. Jokic has done it for 5. And so I think 17 is the right spot for him. If his career ends today, that's right where he should be. But there's a chance. Jokic is climbing up every year. He has another top 5 MVP year. And when he gets to 10, then he gets to move into that group. And then he starts suddenly supplanting Akeem, which is hard for me to believe, in Duncan because of his greatness. All right, let's have some discussions. They put John Stockton at 27 or 29. On one level, I think Jazz fans will super appreciate it because Chris Paul is 30 So Stockton ahead of Paul. Stockton ahead of Jason Kidd, who's 33. Stockton ahead of Harden, who's 34. Nash, who's 35. And Iverson, who's 36. So in the era of great point guards, and this is stretching multiple years if you have Harden, Kidd, Nash, and Iverson. But if you think of Iverson and Nash, which were kind of in their era, and then Kidd was in that, they have Kidd at 33, Nash at 35, and Iverson at 36. So Kidd bet one notch better than Nash, Nash better than Iverson. And they have John Stockton better than all of them, but they have Isiah Thomas better than John Stockton. This gets into an interesting question. So to me, it gets into a few things. It gets into longevity, obviously. Stockton is 3,000 in assists more than the next guy, which is Chris Paul. Stockton played 19 years. Isaiah's career was short comparatively, 13, but 12 of his 13 years, he's an all-star. 5-time All-NBA. The All-NBA to me is really interesting when you play in the same era. To me, that's the most important one. What's interesting on Stockton is because of Magic and because of Isiah, Stock's All-NBA number is really big, but when you start getting into first team versus second team and things of that nature, it's not as awesome. So Stockton was first team All-NBA only once. He was second team All-NBA, twice. 93, 94, and 94, 95, which are probably the years, if I go back, I'd have to think off the top of my head, probably Magic's out. He's second team All-NBA a multitude of times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we go look at Isiah in that same era and look at Isiah Thomas, but not Isiah Thomas, the not the diminutive one, the all-time great one. He's 12-time All-League, but trying to look at it in the same way, he's 3-time All-NBA first team, 2-time All-NBA second team, and that's it. In the same era. 12-time All-Star. He's only 5-time All-NBA. That's where I think Stockton has the edge on Isiah Thomas. Now, we get into the game of titles here. Right? 2-time NBA champion versus 0-time NBA champion. Finals MVP. But to me, when I look at Isiah Thomas's career, which is we're talking top 30 players of all time. So the fact that he's All-NBA 3 times, and John was only it twice, and they were playing in the same year. So in those 3 years, he was better. But then he's All-NBA second team when Stockton's in the same, in an era when Stockton's playing as well. So to me, that's a little bit. Now, if you start going, what gets interesting, if you start looking at MVP voting every year, I think Isaiah's role on his team, not having Karl Malone, would make him superior. Isiah, I'm not certain of this, but I would guess, and that would be my quick cop out, Isiah was 4-time top 10 MVP in the NBA and 9-time, maybe 10-time top 20. Where Stockton was 1, 2, 3, 3-time, 4-time top 10, same. So about the same. It's hard for me to look honestly at these two careers and say that Isiah Thomas should be ahead of John Stockton on any chart other than the fact he won a title. And maybe that's enough. But when you start to compare, they played in the same era. Stockton's got more All-NBAs. He was in the MVP top 10 just as many times. He's in MVP top 20 just as many times. Stockton should be ahead of Isiah Thomas. They gave Stockton great respect in the head of Harden. And I don't know, like, funny, I would have Harden higher than 34, but the playoff failures are there. Nash, 2-time MVP, slides to 35. That's interesting to me. That seems low. And Iverson at 36. But you isolate Isiah Thomas and John Stockton, and I'd have to have John Stockton ahead of Isiah Thomas. The next point guard after that, and point guard gets a little funky on the list, gets into a category that I don't think you can start to question. I don't think Oscar Robertson is probably the next point guard at 14, and then you're into Magic, and depending whether you think Steph's a point guard. So they have stock. If you have Magic and Steph as point guards, I don't know what you think of Steph. That's a decent question. And Oscar, they have Stockton as the 5th best point guard of all time. But they have him behind Isiah Thomas. It's pretty interesting. All-time scorers. Big guys. And the mailman next as we continue on Locked On Jazz. This doesn't want to work. All right, there we go. All right, we get to the Karl Malone. Mailman's at 28 on the Bleacher Report, or 22nd on the Bleacher Report list. I don't think there's, so just to give it to you, he's ahead of big guy. He's ahead of Giannis, which is interesting. And he's ahead of Barkley. So there's not a big, like, there's not some power forward behind them that suddenly you're going to say to yourself, like, position-wise, looking at. And there's really not one that you're going to say, I've got to put mailman ahead of. So Moses Malone is 21, won a championship, 3-time MVP. Karl's 2-time MVP, very similar careers. Julius Erving is 20. And David Robinson, 1-time MVP, 2-time champion, 10-time All-NBA, is 19th. And then Dirk is 18th. Do you think the mailman should be ahead of Dirk or David Robinson? Here's what I loved. So you have Ewing, Robinson, Olajuwon, Duncan, Shaq, like an era of great centers. Few years there too, probably. Ewing's at 40. Robinson's at 19. Olajuwon's at 18. Duncan's at 7, and Shaq's at 6. So when they ranked that kind of era of great centers, they went Shaq, Duncan, Hakeem, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing. Again, I've got to give him credit. I think this list is pretty strong. The mailman's, I was trying to figure out, like, to me, Karl Malone, I think, considering he's 3rd all-time leading scorer and 7th all-time in career rebounding, and averaged 25 and 10, and was a 14-time All-NBA player, is better than Dirk. That would be my instinct, but I'm sure if I talk to a Dallas guy, they're going to say, you're crazy. Dirk also adds some element of historically changing the game. Dirk wins that championship. He has an MVP. He's got about the same amount of All-Stars, about the same amount of All-NBAs. I might have gone there. Garnett's interesting to me, who gets ranked better than all of them. And I was stunned when I realized Garnett had only won Defensive Player of the Year once in his career. But he was a force. He's a 15-time All-Star as well. I don't love the All-Star as the caliber. I like the All-NBA. So Garnett gets 9-time All-NBA, and at 16 goes ahead of Nowitzki, who's a 14-time All-NBA, who's ahead of Karl, who's a 14-time All-NBA. Might quibble there a little bit. It's a really well done list. Here's some other interesting ones. Dame Lillard and Vince Carter right next to each other. I think they did a bunch of these on purpose. They're great. Carter 65, Lillard 64. In a run of just kind of offensive-minded players who never won. Dominique Wilkins 50, Tracy McGrady 59, Carmelo 60, Dame Lillard 64, Vince Carter 65. I'll say that again just because it's hard to grasp it. Dominique Wilkins 50, Tracy McGrady 59, kind of the same player, different eras. Carmelo 60, Vince Carter, or Dame Lillard 64, Vince Carter 65. They put Paul George and Grant Hill right next to each other at 78 and 79. I thought that was interesting. Stockton and CP3 right next to each other, 29 and 30. We talked about the era of point guards already. Steph Curry ahead of Kobe is going to get a lot of talk. That's good by them to create the talk. Adrian Dantley came in at 84 on the list. Sam Jones and Jimmy Butler were the two players sandwiched around Adrian Dantley. Pistol Pete Maravich came in at 77. So 4 Jazz players in the top 100 all-time. Malone 22, Stockton 29, Pistol 77, AD 84. I mean, it could lead to our great debate. Who's better, Karl Malone and John Stockton? Right? That's still always been a question of Jazz fans. Some other players that were on this list that are modern. Klay Thompson, 98. Tatum, 93. Chris Webber was 90, and Draymond Green was 88. It's an interesting mix, like high-end scoring rebounder, non-winner versus no point, no rebounding winner. I mentioned Paul George, 78. Kyrie Irving, 69. Joel Embiid, 66. Luka's 57. Westbrook's 48. Anthony Davis, 45. Kawhi, 32. And Harden, 34. Pretty interesting. Well done. Super fun. John Tonje played last night for the Jazz. He had 16 points. He was 5 of 9 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3. Kind of showed exactly what you'd expect. He should be unfazed. At his age, he should be unfazed by Summer League. I suspect he starts on a 2-way contract. He would be our third 2-way, and he gets a chance this year when guys get banged up to be able to make the move and do the things that they and gets the opportunity to prove himself along the way. Interesting little note. Cam Spencer just signed with Memphis. Why do I care about this? Because it's kind of interesting. 4-year, $10.5 million 2-way deal out of a 2-way. I think I read it's like the biggest contract for a player coming out of a 2-way ever. Maybe it's only for Memphis, but forever. But it's an interesting concept of what players are going from 2-ways to NBA players. It's a longer conversation, but to me, there's something about the NBA now with an 18-player roster that needs to have some sort of adjustment to how you build rosters that I'm not entirely sure teams have done yet. That there's just, I'm not convinced that players 11 through 15 on your roster are ever developing. Like Johnny Juzang, we didn't get anything. We had him for a few years and we tried, and he's now moving on. We'll see if he makes it in the NBA this year. I think there's a lot of those. And more often than not, that's the case. And so can you use those roster spots better than that? We can talk about that as we continue. All right, that is Locked On Jazz today. Jazz are off today. They have one more summer league game, then they might have a consolation game, I think is the way it works. And so we'll be back with you tomorrow. We'll look at some other, probably take a little look at Isiah Collier and Cody Williams, the way we looked at Flip the other day. Fun game last night, though. Fun top 100 list. Want your thoughts and your comments. Throw them in the comment section. Fun one today. Have a great day. This is Locked On Jazz. We now send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel, Locked On NBA. Plus, check out Locked On NBA daily for you each and every day at Locked On NBA on your audio.